Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Welcome to the Fatherhood Think Tank. We are here for another night of intellectual conversation. Fathers, men who put together uh, thoughtful, thoughtful mindsets in our community. Tonight, we're going to be definitely having a very interesting conversation. I know that there's been a lot of um, concern, a lot of conversation about Sean Combs, U.S. versus Sean Combs. And I, I'm not here to talk about, well, I don't want the conversation to become that. The conversation I wanted to have is about him being a father. And what I realized is after the trial and listening to some of the trial and paying close attention. I think that one of our major resources that we have always tried to present to fathers in our community was if they had to go into the court system and be involved in the court system, there is a way to do it. So tonight's topic is what fathers can learn from the U.S. versus Sean Combs trial. I'm Dr. Ron. This is the Fatherhood Think Tank. Like, share, subscribe, and let's get introductions of our fathers who are joining us tonight in the Fatherhood Think Tank.
I am Frank Gaines, Dr. Frank Gaines, father of four and grandfather of five with one on the way. Retired educator.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Ed Tenney. I am transitioning to a single father of three with a grandbaby, one grandbaby.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. I'll be back on live next week. Either way, my name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7 young adults, for 4 young women, 3 young women, 4 young men, 2 grandchildren, a granddaughter, and a grandson. And it's always a pleasure to be here. Can't wait to get into the topic.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad that everybody was able to, I think tonight's conversation is one that I first I wanted to ask everybody um, a question in reference to, and since we are fathers and we're thinking about father-based things, just everyone just shared a thought they felt about, not so much about the trial, but what did it mean, or how does it mean to you to, as a father, to see a father be on trial, and what did it mean that his children showed up every day to the trial, and for the trial to be so salacious, that the children showed up every day to support their father, to be there for him. What does that say, and what could it say to us, or what could be talking about, maybe, based on how we see him in the public and people might be prosecuting him, but what did that say about how his children seen him, noting that his children are a blended children of a blended family. So he doesn't have a traditional child base. He has children as a father, and all of those children, and even some of them are not even biological children, but they were there every day of the trial. So, any thoughts about that?
I don't know. I haven't really followed the trial from from a viewing standpoint. So, I understand how many children does he have? He's got quite a few from if I recall, where did all of his children show? And, I just don't know enough about his relationships with his children to pass, really have an opinion.
So, just to give you an example, he has, well, all of them didn't show because one of them not old enough to show up. But
Okay.
other children he has two twins. He has a single daughter.
Okay.
He has, and he has three sons.
Okay.
So
And all
yeah,
of them were there.
every I mean I know this. The boys was there every day. I know for sure.
Okay.
You see them there every day, but they have the ability. I think the girls are in school and something like that.
Hmm.
So it wasn't just like, hey,
Yeah.
we just. But when you look at the time that they were there, they were
Hmm.
always there in the whole
What
tribe.
What are the age ranges of his kids?
They range from late 20s
Okay.
all the way to three, I think 3 years old, 2 years
Oh,
old,
okay.
somewhere in
So
that
they.
realm, 2 or 3 years old. But the majority of the kids are all like the daughters. The youngest daughters just graduated high school.
Hmm.
So the
Okay.
twins, I think, graduated high school.
Yeah.
So you're talking, you have an older age group of kids.
Well, school age kids. I mean, school age kids, of course, they're dependent on the parents for their support. So I don't know how much of a choice they have in being there or not. But those that are adults, for them to be there, that says a lot because it really truly is an option, I would think in most cases. I don't know what ties they have to family business or anything, but it does indicate that regardless of whether they volunteered or not, that there is some sense of a familial bond, which is, that certainly bodes well because, it could be the flip side of the coin where, you know, they're embarrassed and don't want to have that attention brought to them.
Mm. Well, and it's funny you said that, Dr. Gaines, because one of the points I thought about more that the case was so extreme in the information of really sharing with not the public, but for his kids to be exposed to his sexual private life that they probably didn't really not even they didn't want to know about, but you just think about kids not even wanting to hear or even think about that. Like, I mean, I know that kids are in many cases when they see their parents kiss, they say, and and those that kind of old traditional thing as our parents don't even have a sexual life, but to
Yeah,
be
you're absolutely correct.
at this level,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
here,
that's
but in the be here at this level, to think of the kind of the level of the kind of stuff that was talked about. I mean, I know that was probably very. It could have been very. I mean, I think how embarrassing it is, but then
it's a lot.
to still show up for your father every day. And I know. I mean, they could not come. I mean, they could say it's too much to come. But I think that.
Yeah. It's a lot because even mine are 34 to 35 to 44 years old, and they would, they're repulsed by the thought of, you know, mom and dad doing anything except just being mom and dad.
Mhm.
So I understand. Oh no, you can't sit on Poppy.
Yeah. Okay. I
Wait a
think
minute.
them showing up is a great example of what the Bible says. And I love to use the Bible in these kind of situations because people just think it doesn't apply because they think what they say supersedes what God say, or what they think supersedes what God think. The fact of the matter is this: the Bible says, "Honor thy mother and thy father." You understand? And so when they showed up to court, that's exactly what they did. Because here's the flip side of that, and I think Dr. Gaines was heading that way. And I'm just going to expound on where he started. Where we're so used to parents, you understand, showing up for their children in the most extreme situations. You understand? I didn't see the parents not come to court when that boy shot up that supermarket full of black people. Matter of
Mm.
fact, I have not seen white people not support not support their people when any type of atrocities, when they do any type of atrocities in society. And so if I'm going to have this conversation, I'm going to dump it straight in their lap. If you think this situation differs from that. And so I think oftentimes, we show up for the most atrocities. You understand? Like, for instance, uh, the Meg and Tory thing. We were more, I'm like, okay, that's obvious. Hey, man, player, you shot this girl. But we're sitting there and we'll show up for court and we're rooting and whatever, even though he's this dude has been factually found guilty. I mean, the evidence just completely points to him. 4 people in the car. He's the only one more likely to do it because he's the only one have what they call fits the profile of a personal relationship and all the I guess circumstances to shoot that girl in the foot. And so now we got all these conspiracy theories, and you understand. And I think oftentimes we get on the wrong side of stuff. And so the fact that nobody can see the human side of Diddy, even though in society we have far greater atrocities and we've forgiven far greater atrocities as a people. And we saying, oh, Diddy is the worst thing. He's the devil, this and that. But yet we coexist with the kids and the children of racists who rape our people every day. And so I think when it comes to that, I'm like, listen, if you're going to, and I think that law needs to actually be abolished, if you ask me, because there's too many liabilities attached to it. That's number one. So that's something we really need to look into. That law needs to be completely abolished because the fact that you can say, oh, you can go back as far as you want if you feel like you've been sexually assaulted with no type of accountability to come with it. I'm like, no, that is the stupidest thing I ever heard. And I think it weaponizes promiscuity. I've been saying that online, but it's true. You can't weaponize promiscuity like that because people are naturally promiscuous. To weaponize it, you weaponize it when you say, oh, if you feel, and that's the word they use, feel, not factually. So now feelings are superseding facts. And I'm seeing this in so many trials, particularly with black men. What's emotional supersedes what's factual. So if a woman get on trial, I mean, and she can be lying her ass, excuse me, lying her behind off, and she gets on the stand and she starts to cry, guess what? That's when you become a lie. No matter how much truth is on your side, I've seen what's emotional supersedes what's factual, and nobody cared because men can and will be stereotyped and nothing we can do about it. We're always the bad guy when it comes to women. So men not getting locked up for what's factual. And most of the times, I would say half of the time, men are getting locked up for what's emotional. The young basketball player who retired, he just got locked. He just got locked up 3 to 4 years. Same thing. So this is a trend that's going on. That law should have never passed. And I think everybody who's attached to that law needs to be outed because it's not just at all. It's almost like we are allowing vengeance to supersede justice. And again, because we're men and because it's happening to men more, men don't really, I'm going to be honest with you, we don't advocate for ourselves like we should. I think women do a better job at advocating for men when it comes to certain circumstances. But we don't really advocate for ourselves because in society, we're deemed at an advantage. And because we have that male advantage or that male privilege, it's easy to lie on us. And even in a relationship, a breakup, a divorce, or whatever, the first thing they'll ask is, what did he do? You understand?
Yeah, that's even more magnified when you know, point towards a black man. And I want to kind of extend that. I don't know if this is necessarily going in, another direction, but we have a tendency to show up and be concerned and have an opinion um, on this particular situation, what is um, being, truly magnified by the media. So it's important. Yeah, we don't have, we won't show up, we won't have an opinion. And these type of things are taking place to kind of go to your point, uh, when these type of actions are taking place against men who really have, who really are by and large innocent, but nobody stands up to speak for them. Nobody has an opinion about that. In fact, and I'm talking about even when we start looking at our people, we kind of turn our heads because it's not, it's not something that's uh, that we really want to attach ourselves to. We talk about it, oftentimes in spaces like this, but when it's time to actually step forward and do something, and act, when it's, not somebody who is known or in the media, we just kind of keep moving because it doesn't generate any, it really doesn't generate any attention. There's no value. We don't gain anything from speaking up in those situations. So, listen, my heart goes out to him if he is for what he's innocent of. My heart goes out to her for, things that he has done to her. But, at the end of the day, each of them have to own that. Um, I have a much greater concern for, the people who are taking time to attend these meetings and the people that we're out here trying to serve and help. And that's where we really, really need traction for. I mean, yeah, okay, my heart goes out to Diddy, but uh, Diddy's one man. I'm more concerned about the people out here on the ground,
But I'm
people who
glad,
don't have a voice.
I think that was kind of the premise of us this topic coming about, because the one thing I thought about was so many things that affect fathers and men, especially black fathers, when it comes to legal and court proceedings, right? So one of the number one things is that we say that, hey, voting's not important, it doesn't matter, those things, what have you. But I and Lightborn, I'm gonna say Lightborn put me onto this, but voting is important because voting allows you to pick the people like judges who would make decisions on your case, right? So cases that, and those judges who will, can have some identification with you, understand, and can see you as not only themselves but a family member, right? If there was a woman judge who let's say I have a woman judge who's on the case, and she could see the incidents of what occurred, she could see me as her son. She may operate that case and handle it a little bit different from somebody who doesn't even see me as a human being, who I believe already a bias that I'm a criminal because of who I am in my skin, right? So voting is important, but I think that this thing that a timeline, that that Lightborn brought in. Look at that, running a switch. That Lightborn said a while back is the second important thing is going to jury duty, being on a jury, being a judger of your peer who is accused of whatever they're accused of. Because I think in this case, yes, the jury may have, we think about this, all those jurors, as I evaluated them, a large majority were men who had careers, who at some point, this is just some of my psychological analysis, that they could have at some point felt like that could be them at any moment as a man, and that their relationships that they were having with women, or woman being put to trial, is not the equivalent of what they was prosecuting him. So that became kind of hard, and I think I see that very clear, based on what was the verdict. To me, I agree. If you took somebody from Georgia and brought them to Florida, so y'all, you listen, and I even say, in the culture we have today, we have a crazy culture of men who do fly women from one place to another. They fly them to their town and show them a good time. And
Right.
not saying it's for prostitution, but they do fly them in town. Some men fly to nice Caribbean islands or Latin American countries to be involved with some types of fun trips with their ladies and some men friends of theirs. So you have these things, and so culturally, uh, by sitting on the by me, if I was sitting on a jury and I put myself and saying, hey, if I was a jury, yes, I know who Sean Combs is, but would I and could I feel comfortable of coming up with certain based on the evidence, based on what evidence you gave me? Because larger majority of people say, hey, what are you basing on? But we know there's some influence in there, but another part is the evidence. And there was no real evidence of a mastermind, Rico business. That bad boy was only he did everything, and this hurts me a little bit because it makes me feel a little disheartened to believe that you would go and say a guy who was a multi-mogul who came up from the bottom, established, he did all of that so he could manipulate women into sexual acts. He overcame all the things that I think that as a black boy, as a black man, a young man, that you think about you have to do to get to that level. He only did all that so he could manipulate women in sexual situations. Well, he didn't have to do any of that. He could have just did what we see a lot of our very sick people do who have sexual dysfunctions. They don't never do anything. They just go and pull people off the street or go and kidnap them and do the same thing. So he built this multi-billion-dollar business only so he can manipulate women. And I think that set very disheartening for me because I said it puts a stain not just on us as men, but as black men. And I think about you saying that what kind of father could he be if that was his focus in life? His focus was like he wasn't building a career for his kids to have a future and pass generational wealth. He was doing all of this so he could have sex with women. That's a little strange, but it fits a narrative. I think it fits a narrative that has been a stereotype in the country for black men forever. So I think that was a comfortable narrative to push. But those are the kind of things that
Yeah. Well, here's what, and I can't even say that this is interesting, but he's being sentenced because a willing participant who chose to engage in sexual acts for money traveled across the state line with him. That's what he's being put in jail for. Uh, that is taking place. I mean, it just seems like for what he was accused of, it comes across as, well, we got you anyway, you know, uh, on a humbug. Those were willing, those were willing participants. I'm not saying that what happened to the women that were in that courtroom was right. No, that was wrong. What he did to that woman in that elevator, that was wrong. You know, but that's not what he was being prosecuted for, and that's not what he is going to jail for. It doesn't appear. Um, just I don't find it interesting. It's just it's a shame, for everybody involved, for that matter.
I'm gonna bounce this to Teeny. Teeny, go ahead, please get in there, and then I'll come right behind you.
I'm not exactly sure what to comment or how to comment. I guess given Dr. Ron's perspective about Diddy being a father and having his children show up, I guess I can kind of relate to that in the sense that my own children have been extremely supportive of me as I go through my transition, and I know from my perspective, it has been truly a blessing. I often wonder if I deserve it. but they are being who they are, and I appreciate it. So, what may have been going on in Diddy's mind, I have no idea. I don't know. Uh, I don't know. Maybe he's a different father or a different person as a father than he is as a male. You know, being a sexual being, and you know, who knows the motivation behind why his kids were all there. But you know, I I would venture to guess that um, it was pretty satisfying to know that you know, somebody was there supporting him, whether uh, the motivation was, you know, truly in there to support him, or you know, they're feeling obligated to do so. Regardless, I guess to have that kind of support, you know, can't help but um, you know, uplift you or gird you up in such a way. So I kind of identify with him in a little bit in just having that ability to uh, be able to watch your kids support you. Um, Again, from my perspective, it's extremely humbling, and hopefully their motivation is pure and honorable when they did that.
Well, I can go, and the reason I'm so passionate about this because at one point I was Diddy, and I was on Twitter going hard for him. Here's why. I said, you guys are attacking his celebrity. You understand? And nobody's really advocating for his humanity. And so what you had is celebrity versus humanity. And here's the most, for me, the most disappointing part. They think because he's rich, right? The law should apply to him differently, right? He because he's rich. That's like the richer you are, the more guilty you are. And I think God was doing some amazing things because I mean, when I tell you I was going hard, I was going very hard on Twitter. I mean, I was on the Nancy Grace, and I was just sticking them with facts. I don't care nothing about me personally. I literally advocate with nothing but 100% pure facts. I don't care about nothing else. I don't care about what's emotional. All I want to deal with is what's factual. And so God blessed me with like 6 solid points. When I say solid, solid. And I took those solid points, and I knew we was going to be having this discussion for the next month or so. So I kept sticking them with them 6 solid points. Here's why. Because people are like, oh, he got rich lawyers and stuff like that, all these expensive lawyers on the side. I'm like, so nobody's caring whether he have truth on the side or not? That's not even a factor. We're talking about all this other stuff that really don't matter. I'm like, I don't care who he have on the side. As long as he have truth on the side, that's all that matters. And so when you have the majority of the people, and God just kept showing up on his man's behalf. I mean, just in the testimonies, it was so conflicting. By the time they finished testimony on Cat, or the testimony was on Cassie's behalf, she was just a co-conspirator. And so the verdict is actually a mirror for me. And the reason the verdict becomes a mirror, because I'm like, you can't be guilty of prostitution unless there was a prostitute involved.
Right.
You understand? That's a fact. I ain't got time for what's emotional. Let's talk about what's factual. And so if that's the case, if he's going to be prosecuted, then Jane and Cassie needs to be prosecuted as well. You understand? And so that's what we're going to go through. I'm like, and I say that because when I look at this thing globally and historically, I look at the fact that Rosewood started with a lie like this. Do you understand? People who think that just don't apply to me. I'm like, it applies to the total you because you got your history reflection. Emmett Till started with something like this. You understand? And so for all of you who think this don't apply to you, as a matter of fact, if you, and I'm like, God bless you, But God also forbid if you have successful children, particularly successful male children, you will see exactly how much this applies to you. And so we got a history of sending black boys to white colleges who this kind of stuff happened to. And then we forget our history. You understand? Especially when I'm like, listen, you don't see nothing in this man's situation that reflects your history. And some of the brightest minds was saying some of the dumbest things. I'm talking about we had some of the black brightest minds couldn't even connect their history to this man's reality. To know the fact that I'm like, listen, I don't care whether they're black or not. Sometimes people lie. You need to have those facts straight. And then we start the new thing, the new team, and the new theme now is if you can just label somebody a victim, if you can label a woman a victim, the man automatically becomes a villain. That's another fact. And so again, what's emotional? Trump.
Let me just add. When you said that, I just want to say this is that because we live in a society that you just described, if you label somebody a victim, automatically our society says it has to be a villain, right?
Correct.
There's not this idea that, for me, therapeutically, when I look at this, I look at Sean Combs, Cassie Ventura, or any women kind of that he might have been with in this capacity as both victims. And people might not like it. I've worked in domestic violence, and I'll tell you, the larger majority of the abusers, they were victims. That's why they became the abuser, because they didn't know how to manage. They didn't know what to do. It was a learned behavior that they thought was appropriate to continue to do. And some of our society reinforced them to continue to do it. So to just say people are villains do one thing. They rebel, they get defensive, and then you say, we're going to go get this villain. They're going to defend themselves, and they're going to come out guns a-blazing. Whereas when you look at this person and say, hey, how did they end up start doing this? Now, later, if you take the time to investigate, you find out that this person's just a psychopath and they don't care. They a monster, like everybody continue to say that Sean Combs is a monster regarding. I'm just trying to say, what kind of monster is it? Cookie monster? A sex monster? Is he a money monster? What kind of monster? Because monster is general. I would like to know exactly what type of, because I can tell you a whole bunch of people right now that's monsters and tell you directly what kind of monster they is. But I can see many people praising them, shooting, waving, wanting to be in a room with them, doing anything to be with them, despite me and my belief of them being a monster against humanity. But that's our opinions. That's our subjective way of looking at it. So that's a part I just wanted to throw that in there about the victim part, because as much as we make somebody victims, sometimes we ought to also investigate the villain. Are they a victim too? That's why they're victimizing people. We always heard that. We say it. We only say it when it's convenient. Hurt people, hurt people. When it's convenient, when it's not convenient, we say, oh, a monster hurt people. But when we go and check monsters, many times it's been in our field. You know this, like born in our field, monsters are not born, they're made. They're not born. Something in our society failed them to be the monster they is. But guess what? It can't be that much of a monster. Again, to come back to what my question was, it can't be that much of a monster if your children see you one way based on how the world see you. And I'm gonna tell you, his children, I think about this every day, how hard it could be for his children, because his children live in the social media world. And the things that are being said, he ain't getting, R. Kelly did the stuff he did. If you approve or unapprove, whatever. But R. Kelly also is one of those people I say that is a cultural monster. If you call him a monster, if you're a monster, he's cultural, because he is not a isolated person who has done this. We have seen this from that industry of people. And not even in the industry. We see it in all. It's historically done. accepted depending on who you are. And some people it's not accepted, some people it is. So that's subjective. It becomes subjective. But in this case, I think about his children and the social media onslaught that he has, that his family and his kids have been subject to. Oh my God. Because there's so many that people have taken. Listen, they got him as a sexual predator against men. So he would want to get men, children, that he's a killer, he's killed everything that you can think. And all we really know is that this is what we know for a fact that is the truth. He had sexual partners that he had sexual experience with that some of us may have not ever experienced, and we might have thought was more than we would want to do. That's one. The second thing, him and the young lady Cassidy did have a domestic violence relationship that was caught on camera, where he was physically abusing or being aggressive with her. We don't know the reason why. We only can speculate that they were getting into an altercation that where he physically put, and that is, as we say in our society, not correct. But like when we talked about this weekend, I think culturally in some places it is 100% correct to do, because that's a part of what the system said you should do. So again, it all becomes on who you feel, who justifies it, who agree. Because I'll tell you right now, I know firsthand in a culture that lives in America right now, that the man, he dictates what happens. If it doesn't go the way that he said it, you do something else, no one in the family will support you. Matter of fact, they'll be beating you too. And I'm not saying that's correct, but in their culture and their idea, it is 100% correct. And that's the way they run their culture, and that's the way things operate. Now, it don't work very good in America, but it makes it also difficult for those women to leave, because if they're leaving, they're going to have to leave the sanctity of their culture and go and be in another culture and have nobody, because no one's supporting them, because everyone follows that culture pattern. So we got to be careful when we being, like you said, judgmental and making a decision of this person this and this person that. Everybody has a story. Maybe sometimes we need to hear it, understand it, and then we can make a decision and say, hey, bro, you messed up. Bro, you are making some messed up decisions. Are you willing to do something to change? Because we live in a Christian country, right? Our country is a Christian country that believes in forgiveness for repentance.
Ron, me personally, I don't even have the patience to go through all that. I'm telling you straight up. I'm like, let's just deal with the facts, and let me go ahead and chop your head off. Because I'm like, I'm not here to I ain't here to compensate. When you got facts, I'm here to conquer. I say, because that's all. I'm like, so let me do to you what you're getting ready to try to do to him. I say that maybe if I chop your head off, you'll be more empathetic. And I can only chop your head off with facts. I don't care about nothing else. And so the fact that I know that this law is very new and unfortunately very premature or immature for some case, because the fact is the oldest institution in the world, we know what that is. And so if that's the oldest institution in the world, you think you can create a law without any type of research or anything. You understand? You can create a law that's just or justice driven, right? To go against let's say a crime that's history driven. And you think you can just create it like that with the snap of your finger and say, "Oh, you know what? If we say one person is a villain, the other one is a victim, then we can just build the law and prosecute on that." No, I'm totally against that as a man.
Well, you started speaking a while back. You referenced this new law. I didn't catch the beginning of the conversation. Can you outline for me this law you referenced? Because I missed the beginning of your comments a while back.
The new the sex trafficking law, when they say you can go back all these years, like 30 years. So now you start to see things like, I think it started that they was experimenting with it when it came to the Bill Cosby. I think he was like more so the first.
Me and Me Too. So when Me Too
Right,
came,
Me Too, correct. Yeah, that's where it started.
Legislation started to come out to say, hey, the only way that we can get justice for these people is to now go back in the past, no matter how far it was. So Dr. Gang, we can go all the way back to when in 1977.
Correct.
When you was at FAMU.
Correct.
And say, hey, and when I was at FAMU in 1977, I went over to the party, and Bubby did something that I ain't appropriate. So now they saying, hey, we can bring that all the way to the day 2005, because Bubby Gang just won $65 billion in a lawsuit against somebody, and say, hey, he did this, and so I should get benefited from that. Now, what the last 40 years almost, whatever it was since then, they never thought about it until the present time, and now that you got that $1 billion lawsuit.
So Dr. Gaines, factually, right. So whatever you could have been pledging fraternity. Matter of fact, here goes what most men can empathize with this. You could have been at a bachelor party. I see, because I like to talk about all of it. I'm like, listen, no use to me. Let's just stop playing with the argument and the discussion. Let's just go to the facts. Whether you was pledging, whether you was fraternity, I want to go to the good part of your life, where all the nasty stuff happened. That's the only way you can really discuss it with people. Let me go to the great parts of your life, and let's talk about that nasty stuff that happened. And so when you was young and you was within the sexual prime and your sexual prowess, and we knew that was the culture, and we knew that was the environment, because that's what we call partying. As a matter of fact, America coined it in the 1980s: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You understand? And so if we can have that culture, and that can be the global model of what we was. As a matter of fact, MTV was built on it. And all of a sudden, the only people that's getting prosecuted is BET. I'm gonna say
great analogy. Great analogy.
But we prosecuting BET. And Negroes just sit there like, well, you know, and we can just listen to the argument. I'm like, yeah, that's just how y'all got on the boat. Because at some point you got to know better. And so now for me, I'm like, but you know what, Lionel? If nobody wants to be responsible, you better be. And you dump that into that. And the reason, and then this white guy on Twitter, because I mean, again, we're gonna have the discussion. And so he asked me, you an attorney or something like that. He was being very sarcastic with it. I said, I'm something greater than an attorney. I said, I bet you're not ready. But I said, you know what's greater than an attorney? An acquittal. I said, I bet you ain't get. I said, I got an acquittal. You want to keep on having this discussion? And so the fact that I have an acquittal, which means I lived this. And so when me and anybody get into this argument, I'm like, you understand that you in a battle for your life right now? Because I don't have the luxury to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? You ain't never lived it. But when I lived it, and I watched these people lie on me, I literally watched the judge watch the video, right? That proved that I didn't do what they said they do. And I watched the prosecution throw the video out. Even though the judge sat there and know the truth. And then we'll sit there as black people say, you know what? Yeah, but that's just not the process and the protocol. And I'm like, so the truth don't, after a while, I'm like, well, don't the truth both the matter? Matter of fact, they got the plaque that sits in the court say, we who labor here seek only the truth. If Gaspar on here was on here, he'll tell you that that's actually factual. So they have this big plaque over their head, says, we who labor here seek only the truth. And this woman watched me not do what they said I did to this man. They threw the video out, and I still went to verdict. Right. I cannot play with this. I will literally kill you in a discussion. I mean literally and figuratively, but literally kill you. I mean, my goal, and this is not nothing godly, just Lionel. When I get in this kind of discussion, I'm like, I'm not trying to conversate with you. I'm trying to conquer whatever spirit that if you come in here lighthearted, I'm gonna conquer that. Because nobody that's on trial fighting for their life deserve to be treated like that. And oftentimes, you can get away with it, with black people more than you can with anybody else. People say, "Oh, his kids showed up for him." I'm like, "Why are you surprised? Donald Trump kids showed up for him for his trial," which is what's pissing me off, because I'm like, "What's different?" Right. Everybody, the most notorious white people in this country, children showed up for them at their trial, and all of a sudden we want to have a conversation about a black man, children showing up for him. I don't think so. So, matter of fact, nobody can't even talk about this around me right now. I'm telling you, I'm like, because I'm gonna check you on the spot. You can't even talk to me about it right now.
Well, let me welcome our old friend. I don't know if he can talk. He's just listening right now. We got Gene Robert Bernard here. Good night, Gene. Long time no hear from, but it's always good to hear from you, brother.
Good evening, fellas. Hey, good evening. Good evening. You know, first time caller, long time listener. How's everybody doing?
All right, good.
So I wasn't in for most of the discussion, but I was listening to the tail end of what Lionel was saying, and I wholeheartedly agree with him on the fact that we shouldn't be surprised when you have support from your family, right? I think it should be expected in any case. You know what I'm saying? Because that's your village, that's your system. And so oftentimes, more than not, we're more surprised when they do show up than when they don't show up. And I think we have to start reversing that thinking just to make sure that we have in place, we put in place a security system that our world or our village is as strong as we are.
That's a great point, because I'm going to take us to our next place. This question was, but I'm going to just add on to what you said, Gene. And what Lightborn was saying is that I know that when I was working on my doctoral research, there was a colleague of mine who was working on hers, and that was her research, was what happens to family members when family members do crimes. And her evidence, she predicted that no matter what the crime is you do, your family may feel some way about the crime that you committed and whatever, but by nature, they will be there to support you all the way through, because you are them and they are you. And it's a very hard place to say, well, I'm just going, because I think a big part of it is people say, oh, this person, did this all for them. They did it by themselves, for themselves. And a lot of times we don't see that very often. I had to tell somebody this the other day, that we argue about black crime in America and where it comes from. And I said, maybe it was maybe it was Lightborn. Who knows? I had a lot of time to talk about a lot of stuff this weekend. Lightborn and Brother Tylon, but that and here for us in being as black people in America, very often large majority of crimes that we committed are that we do, or that we're accused of, are essentially involved in getting something for survival, or getting something to provide for our family, our kids, our mother. When you look at the young men, the large majority of young men who was in the drug industry, they wasn't in the drug industry because they liked drugs. They thought it was cool, and they thought they was going to get rich. They wanted to be able to provide some money to their moms that they lived in a home with, and their brothers and sisters could have something that they seen that they weren't having, that other people were having. And so if stand out all night and whistle or blow or hand somebody a little package to get that money is what they did. They didn't do crimes that we see more, what we understand as white collar crimes. It's interesting that it be called white collar crimes, that are about greed, are about getting more than what you're supposed to have, taking advantage of what you already have access to, fraud, scandal, those kind of things that you begin to see in that area. Not really, not too many. Because listen, when I'm looking right now, the people getting arrested for PPP loans, the majority of them are these people, and a lot of them did it, and they shouldn't have did it. But it was to try to save something or do something. But hey, you're gonna be the one they're gonna come and find. Now they had PPP loans that was billions of dollars that went to nowhere, but to keep companies alive. But guess what? Nothing happened to them people. They just keep on moving. So I want to right now transition again. If you were watching this, we are talking about what fathers can learn from U.S. versus Sean Combs' trial. And the initial question that we were just talking about is about his kids showing up to support him as a father. The next thing I want to transfer into is something that became so clear to me in my work with fathers going into court for child custody, divorce, in the family court. This courtroom that's in the background of me is a Broward County family and civil courtroom. I've been in that courtroom many times. That's why I put it in the background for me today. I've been inside this courtroom multiple times with fathers, usually dealing with things in relation to not child support, more of custody. And I think so often people say, oh, you're helping people try to get out of paying money. No, it's not out of getting paying money. It's about people want to be with their children, just like anybody else want to be with their children. You just like a mom wants to be with their child, a father would like to be with a child. And if he didn't, he wouldn't even be stunting you. He'll just give you the money and push you and moose you out the way, because it's a much more easier process to come up with $2,000 or $3,000 a month to not have to be bothered with you or a child. You know, if you don't care, because I see multiple men who have the financial ability to do that. They just pay the people off and never be dealing with them again. So
I'm not gonna gains and because I don't want to really over talk until these guys get their perspective in, and then I come behind them. So Dr. Gaines and Teeny, go ahead and jump in if you guys got something to say, and then I come behind you. Because what I think Ron is talking about, he's talking about systemic injustices, particularly when it comes to
right. And let me. I didn't even give them the punchline even to get to the punchline of what the next part was. It's this point that I realized that what we could learn and what people can learn from, because it was said multiple times by multiple people who watched this trial, even the jurors said it, that the way that Sean Combs interacted in court, interacted with his counsel, interacted with his family, the things that he done, his positioning, the way he responded, his and these things are so. Listen, let me tell you something. I'm not going to say these things are not biased, because they're very biased. They're super biased. And so this is one of them old things in our family. Ancestors used to tell us, hey, you got to be twice as good. You got to do these things. And we would say, I ain't got to do it. But sometimes when we're in a certain system, you will be surprised of, I've said with men, they went in one way and they lost everything. And then men who went in another way. I wish Rohan was here tonight, because he could definitely tell you about how he handled. Rohan is an expert at how to handle court. Maybe it's just his accent or whatever, but he was able to win over the judge, even their lawyer. He was able to win over by his demeanor, his mood, his tone, his conversation. And sometimes you have to use that, because people are already making a biased judgment of who you are and what you are. And I think in a big part of the one thing I think the juror said is that Sean Combs looked like he was always in control of himself. Not control of the trial, but in control of himself. And I think that plays a big part on how people perceive what you would do and won't do, based on being this image of being in control, when very sensitive things are being said, sensitive things are being done, even things are being said that are absolutely not true about you. and that you can have the control and demeanor to be able to say, okay, no problem. I understand that that's how you feel, and talk to the lawyer, write down something for the lawyer, and keep that kind of composure. So I brought that up to say this is a composure that I should be successful. And I know that people will say, well, I'm going to go ahead and fight, because all the time I say, hey, you're going to go into court and fight for your kids, you're going to end up losing. You need to go in and advocate for your kids, or advocate for yourself. Not fight for yourself, but advocate, because fight becomes a term, a language that people then use against us, even though that's not what we mean. So I just wanted to bring that in, and then see what other fathers had to say about that idea of that.
Well, it's interesting that you said that towards the end, because I was going to comment on that. It's about the perception, right? Advocating versus fighting. Arrogance versus confidence. And I think when we go into we as Black men go into certain arenas, for lack of a better word, but certain arenas or areas, already the perception is put on us on how we're supposed to act. And when you contradict that, everyone gets surprised and says, well, you must be different from the rest of them, right? When actually we are the norm. It's the other people who are different from us, right? And I think that's what needs to be understood, right? So if I do come off and I'm happy about what I do, and I'm like, yo, we won, I'm excited about it. They're like, oh, you gotta calm that down. You're being a little arrogant to those who lost. No, because if my white counterpart does the same thing, they'll be like, you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be jumping around and celebrating. So I think already with what you're saying, with the difference in how the perception is on what we do and the judgment that's placed on it, we're already at a deficit in some cases. And when you step into a courtroom, your behavior is already supposed to, because the mentality is, fathers don't want to be you're a Black man, you don't want to be a father. I'm forcing you to be a father. You're forced to be here. Whereas a lot of times, most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, a father's in there because they want to be in there to get the rights, to be a part of that child's life, to be engaged with that child. And it's up to, like you said, it's up to the father to keep that composure and let them see you advocating versus saying that he's fighting.
Teeny, Dr. Gaines?
I'll jump in. I appreciate this particular segue of conversation, because I feel like I'm in the trenches right now. And I appreciate Dr. Ron's perspective on fighting versus advocating. I guess that I'm really inexperienced, I guess, in this particular transition that I'm going through. So I don't know exactly how it is I'm supposed to think, how my perspective is supposed to be skewed in a particular way. But I appreciate advocating versus fighting. Up until now, up until that moment, in my mind, I am fighting, and that's why I use the word trenches, because you get in the trenches because there's a battle that's going on, there's warfare going on, and so you're gearing up your mind for this fight that's coming. But the perspective of advocating for yourself, I'm actually going to have to look up examples, because I really don't know how to advocate for myself. It's something that I feel like I am inexperienced in. What exactly does it mean to advocate versus fight? And when you're in a courtroom situation, what demeanor are you supposed to have? What or I guess, are you supposed to give off in order to not be offensive by a fight, but be, I guess, defensive in the sense of advocating for yourself? So maybe Dr. Ron, if you could kind of elaborate on what that
When I don't
means.
listen, I got one better for you. I see that attorney at JAG has came on here, and he can definitely speak to, because I was going to say that one part of you being deciding going in court to fight or to advocate, also sometimes it's not about you, and this happens to, I think, a lot of defendants, and I'm saying defendants because they're not in control of the lawyer. The lawyer is controlling them because they're not paying. Because when you're paying your lawyer, you're leading the ship. You're just asking them to represent you in a way, so they're setting the tone for what it will be. So, because some lawyers come in and tell you, we're going to fight this out and this and that. You say, okay, because just like you said, Ed, you don't know. You don't know. Listen, I don't know. I don't even know the procedures for going to court, because many of us, we don't know them unless we experience them and been in them. What the procedure. That's why the lawyers can get all the money from us, because they know the procedures of going into the court, what have you. But I think that I'm going to pass it over to the expert, because I was thinking the mental component, but the technical, the person who would be in the trenches and know how to describe that is our good friend, Brother Johnny Gaspar.
Well, I just came in on the end there of what Brother Ed was talking about regarding advocating versus fighting.
Let me give you a quick run. We were talking about the night show is what can fathers learn from U.S. versus Sean Combs trial, and we talked about some things about father, but not right now. We're talking about what is one of the things that a lot of the jurors and the court people in the courtroom said about their idea of how they seen Sean Combs based on what he was being accused of and all these things, and how that may have benefited him with the jury, and how the jury perceived him and how they looked at things. The one key word is, I know that the jury said he always looked like he was in control, not in control of the court, but in control of himself. And that set that a tone of feeling that he wasn't acting crazy, he wasn't getting flipped with the judge, because I think that is and I think Gene said that this is a mindset to believe that we're going to come in there and be acting crazy and do crazy things. So when you come in there and you're not doing any of that, it makes people feel like, oh, you're different than what they've seen on media or what they've seen. You watch the shows, and the shows where the judge show, where the people show the people attacking in the courtroom, and who you see doing those things. So Brother Cheney was saying, as he's getting ready to go through this, he was thinking of a fight mentality, and he was saying that he's not even now changed this idea to an advocate mentality, but it's really about what he's advocating for. I was speaking to advocating, don't fight for your children, but advocate for them. Advocate what is because in the court of civil court, family court, it is always the court's tendency to say what's in the best benefit of the children.
Yeah. Correct.
So
correct.
when you're talking about I'm fighting for them, that seems, especially from a male's masculine, maybe misogynist or even toxic masculinity viewpoint, you could say I'm willing even to bust her in the mouth for them because I'm going to fight for them. When you're going to say different from, I'm going to advocate that, hey, they need to go to bed at a certain time so they can get up in the morning. And that's a different mentality of the conversation. So I'll pass it over to you. I'm just
Definitely, I agree with you, because when you use the word fight, people think violence. They don't think fight as in advocate. The word fight to most people think violence, physical altercation. So that in turn implies violence. I think you got to look at who Sean Combs is as a businessman, as a person, and that played a role in his ability to stay in control as well. At the end of the day, you don't become a billionaire by wilding out, by showing to the world that you are this monster that many people try to describe him as, and that he probably is in reference to his violent behavior towards the women that he was involved with and that many are accusing him of. But at the end of the day, just a good mouthpiece, a good attorney, a good advocate for their client is able to target the facts of what the case is all about. Whether you're in criminal court, family court, or any other type of civil litigation, it's about what are the facts of the case, what does the evidence of the case reflect, what are we talking about, why are we here? And if your mouthpiece, your advocate allows you, I mean, you allow your advocate to do their job, and if they're intelligent enough, you don't ever have to say a word, and you could do like Sean Combs and sit there very quietly and be an active participant in your trial, especially in criminal cases, because you want your client to be able to share with you a little he knows, because he knows the specifics. He was there. He knows the details of what was actually said. So he'll, after she says something on the stand or the person says something on the stand, your client can say, ask him about this. He'll hand you the sticky because you don't know about that. So now when I ask you about this, your whole demeanor changes. So now the jury sees you, oh, what was that all about? Maybe that was something. And those are the things that being a good advocate allows you to fight properly for your client, so your client doesn't have to fight for themselves and they can sit there and be together. If you notice, even with these young men recently that the government has been going after, using their rap lyrics to target them and to say, oh, he admitted to committed this crime. Listen to what he said in this rap song. This is a rap song about this. When before, music to most people is an art form. It's a way of this, expressing yourself. If we sit back and we look at and we use that out, that's one of the biggest issues that we're having now as Black people in this community, especially young Black men. They're using our rap lyrics, which is our description of our environment, what we've been exposed to, and trying to use that to convict us of a crime that there's no actual evidence of. So being a good advocate allows you to, for your client or for your children, allows you to speak on their behalf in a controlled manner so that people hear what you have to say and don't look at you as if you're somebody who is always fighting or they can believe to have committed this crime. That's why they say most people who want to defend themselves are the worst lawyers that could possibly be, because they're going to ultimately share who they are as a person, and the jury may see that come out and lead to their conviction. And that's why a lot of times when people get up there and they want to be their own lawyer and they think they can act it out like they see on TV, so oftentimes that is the worst thing they could do, and it ends up with them being looked at negatively and in turn perceived by the jury as people that actually did commit the crime. I hope that makes sense to you, gentlemen. In that
Yeah.
No, that's
And Teeny, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, that's good. Hey, Jay, what's up, baby?
So,
I'm good, like, how you doing, baby? All good?
Bless, man.
Great to see you.
And again, I told him I was going hard on the Sean Combs case because this was actually me. I actually went on trial, looking at 15 years for just on straight accusation, no real facts. And so, and I can tell you one thing: the first thing you want to take to you, other than a good attorney, is God. That's number one. God, the first thing. The truth is the second thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You take God, take the truth, and a good attorney. And Teeny's case is a little bit more fragile, and I think advocating versus fighting will be a perfect fit and mindset for Teeny, because you act up against somebody you love. Not even once love, but still love. Even though it may be going through some type of metamorphosis or whatever the case may be, love will still exist in that. And so that's the difference between fighting and advocating. You understand? Your opponent is somebody you love versus somebody that hates you. So advocating always apply to people you love. You understand? But fighting applies to those who hate you, and that's what I was up against. So when I went to my trial, I wasn't trying to advocate for nothing. I knew I was in a straight fight. They wanted to kill me or kill them. That's it. Nothing else. With nothing else in between. And so it started with my I had public defenders, two of them, two very young ones too. At that time, I had to be about 24. So my attorney was the leading public defender was 26. His assistant was 23. I literally had to make them fight for me because I didn't understand then, but I understand the system now of trying to plead me out. Right? This happens every day. It's one big farm, one big Negro farm. They just plea you out. And so it wasn't like I had to actually literally make them be on my side. Now, I didn't do that because, Lionel had this great forceful personality. I'm like, no, I didn't know how to put a demand on people until I actually went to church and I learned. You understand? I had a very wise pastor who learned how to take what was spiritual and make it very practical. So that really affirmed me. And so now here I am under the teaching of this great defender of what everything God tells us and teaches us to defend. And now here I am impressioned by it. Now here I am facing my own defense. You feel what I'm saying? And so now realizing every time I come to court, because they keep pushing it off, keep pushing it off. And every time I come to court, these guys are trying to plea me out. Oh, we got a better deal. Every deal is better than the next. And at one point, being saved, this is what, God, his spirit is very sound. And it was like, why would you say, why would you, what they call it? Why would you plead to being guilty of something you're not guilty of? And so it's a very Jedi mind trick, because I'm saying to myself, wow, at some point they weigh you down enough, you're like, maybe I am guilty of this, even though you knew you didn't do it. And so after a while, I'm like, wow, that got to be a great Jedi mind trick to make you literally lie on yourself.
It happens all the time.
Every morning.
Sadly, I have literally gone in there as a private attorney and seen cases where sadly the public defender will accept a plea because it's the easiest thing, and you hear it all the time. A person comes in, they're charged with possession of, let's say they got caught with a small bag of cocaine, using that as a topic. That's a felony, right? But the state attorney will offer you credit time served. So credit time serves means you go home right now, but in some cases you're adjudicated, which means you're convicted. You go home now. You don't have to stay in court. You don't have to stay in jail. You leave right now. You don't have no probation, no nothing. But you're going to be a convicted felon. You know how many people take that plea, not understanding the ramifications of that on their life, because they would rather do that than advocate for their life, as Brother Lightbourne said, because in some cases, they may have had the cocaine in their pocket. So it is what it is. So to them, that's a great deal. But if you had somebody advocating for you, the first thing you would say, but I have no priors. I have no prior involvement with the justice system. Is there a better deal? Is there a way that I can walk out of this without a conviction?
Right. I don't use cocaine. I don't even know where that cocaine came from. As I just came from church, and then the police stopped me and they said, "There's some man cocaine in my pocket." I was like, "How was that?" But because, I think that is the hustle on us in our ignorance of saying, I want to go home.
I want to go home.
I want to go home right now, not thinking of short-term gratification leads to long-term discrimination.
That's it. That's a great phrase right there. Short-term gratification leading to long-term discrimination. Because now, every time you apply for a job, you have to click on that phrase that says, "Oh, you're a convicted felon." And from that point forward, no matter how much a job wants to bring you in, many times out of fear of what potentially could come from litigation, if, God forbid now, because they're moving on possibilities. If you are involved in something that happens on the job, how are they going to defend that? How are they going to defend that they have a convicted felon here? So right there, they're liable, whatever it is the cost may be. So oftentimes, rather than take that risk, they would rather just simply say, unfortunately, we can't hire you because you're a convicted felon. Sometimes you get that conversation. You just don't get a call back, period. So and when we sit down and think about it, coming back to fathers and how we have to advocate in the aspect of the courtroom when it comes to our children, the same thing, controlling your emotions, is so important, because the same way Diddy stayed calm, sat there and passed the note, he was able to do so. But when you don't have an advocate for you and you go into the child support courtroom by yourself, or custody or time sharing by yourself, your emotion oftentimes takes over, and then your response leads the person who is judging you to say, oh, so you are what she says.
Mm.
Not because you are that person,
And,
but
and,
in that moment, you are just angry at the fact that you have to even go through this. And you unfortunately lose control, and your loss of control in that moment has that person up there judging and saying, I don't even hear what you have to say any longer, because you've shown me, in their opinion, who you are. So she's right.
and
Go
and
ahead,
that's
Jay.
perfectly said, because when Tina asked, the difference between fighting and advocating, the difference between fighting and advocating is emotion. When you're fighting, it's usually emotional. When you're advocating, it's more of a logical thing that you're doing, right? So that's how you have to look at both of those realms, in my opinion. So fighting comes with emotion. It comes with what with just with how can I say that, recklessness, right? Where advocating, it comes more on the logic, and it answers the question why I deserve, right? And so when you start to advocate, you start to answer the questions why I deserve something. So I'm advocating, let's say I'm advocating, for example, of what they were using for my child. I deserve to see my child because I'm an essential part of the child's life, because I all the things, and you list the things that you do for them, right? When you're fighting, it's more so, I deserve a child because I'm just a father. I deserve to be there. You're not giving rational thought. You're giving more emotional feeling. And a lot of times, advocating gives you that rational thought behind why you want something,
Right.
if that makes sense.
But not even why you want something, why it is so important for the child to have something. Because I think
Correct.
sometimes what will happen is, and I don't know how this operates, but by nature, sometimes we're in these systems, and I think Rohan said this, to a father who will face divorce, kindly control your emotions, your health, stay focused on the plan, not hope. And I think that he sums that up so much. What I was going to say is that we go in believing that, hey, everything we got going on is right, and guess what? A lot of it is right and it's true and it's the facts. But somehow in this whole uh fake pseudo blind justice system, there always becomes a point where your facts don't outweigh the opinions of what somebody thinks is for the other defendant or the other client or the other person. Like they think, they feel, they believe in their mind that the other person, this should work like this, and then you're saying, but this is how it really works. But that's not their perception. That's not how they perceive it. So then now you are now caught in this battle of what you know is true, and we know how we feel when we know something is true. We go high or we go completely low, and then they pick those vibes from us. So that's why you gotta have a lawyer, because a lawyer ain't affected by it. The lawyer, listen, the last thing I want to do is make your lawyer have to tell you, hey, come on, man, calm down. I can't even control you, because at that point they're gonna say even the lawyer can't control you. But listen, I'm gonna tell you something. Strangely, I'm following a case right now, and it's been going on for 3 years, through 2 years now. A buddy of mine in the custody, and the mother has had so many incidents, dropping lawyers, not following lawyer, all this, and they still have not given him permanent custody. So when you and me and him talk about this every time that we talk about his when he comes to the case, that if it was him, he would have had to go to have supervision visits, even though they had a parenting plan where they was joint everything. He would have had to go back with the stuff that she's done. If it was him, he would be going back to develop, to have to work up his way to supervise visits to even get back to what he already had from the beginning. And it's just, that's how the court is just somewhat biased like that. So we have to be savvy, we have to be smart, and I think it's sometimes the acceptance that the court is biased. And so we have to, like, sometimes use reverse psychology and really speak to what is the best. Listen, you know that statistics says that kids who don't have exposure to their fathers are more likely to end up back in court. So my son's not here today, and y'all don't want him to come to court. But if I'm not involved in his life, there's a likelihood I'll be standing right here trying to convince you not to put him away for some things he done, because I wasn't in his life during that time, because I had to wait to get supervised visits. I had to wait, because you can't say he was influenced by me, or you say that because of my absence he did those things. We can't have it. We can't have both ways. Either he gonna either be influenced by me, or he gonna do it on his own, and then you'll say, well, it can't. I can't be fault for everything. Now, if he lived with me, listen. What's the boy name who ate people?
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer's dad went to court with him every day. His dad wrote a letter to the original judge who would have put him away when he killed when he assaulted the young kid. When he assaulted the young kid, and his dad and the judge because his dad wrote the letter saying, my son going through some stuff. He trying to find himself sexually, this blah blah blah. The judge gave him a pass on that. That would have solved most of the people who got killed by him. But it was the court's bias of the dad being there, feeling I raised my son all this time. So this is what here's the evidence, and that's why precedents are so important. I think I'm running on because there's so many things. We got so much time, but I'm gonna say this: the one thing that we have to remember is precedents, because the precedents is what sometimes hurts us in the court, because they have precedents of stuff that we have done as men and fathers have done that they continue to say was horrible, and they use that as an example, and they sometimes may not look at the same precedents about the mother on the other end. They will, most people don't care about the precedents being established right now in the United States government right now. Most people don't care about it. But later in 8 to 16 years, we're going to be dealing with the precedents of the things that's being done based on who the person is doing them. This is how the court is sometimes operating.
And unfortunately, Dr. Ron Osborne is right about that, y'all. When it comes to how the courts make decisions when it comes to men, especially us as black men, oftentimes the goal is to go after what has happened in the past, how we've been. Not the man that's in front of them, but what other men that look like them have done in the past. And unfortunately, that's held against you. So your goal in that, in every moment and every time, is to stick with the facts. The fact is, everybody was assuming and expecting Sean Combs to get the same punishment that R. Kelly received. And in the eyes of many people in the public, he was even worse, because you had other people. You not only had Black America weighing in, but you had white America weighing in on who Sean Combs was. And that was all based upon what they saw as violence committed against a woman, domestic violence in that manner. And the charges that I believe that were brought against him literally was just, let's throw something at the wall and see what sticks. And hopefully we can have him look so bad, such like the monster that we've seen in this video, that the jury will overlook what the evidence actually is and find him guilty anyway. That's literally what the government was hoping, because there is no way this was a RICO case. There was no way. Now, the sex trafficking, I think, was immediately tarnished, that argument, because both of the women said they were receiving money, still receiving money, behaving as if they were his girlfriend, participating effectively and being, they themselves would have been charged as women doing this, because they even testified that they were involved in setting up many of these meetings. They would plan these things, but yet the government wasn't going to charge them. They wanted Sean Combs. So at the end of the day, the 2 points that they got were very straightforward, and those are the easiest charges to find them on. Did somebody travel to have sex? Yes. They crossed state line. Were they paid for this to participate in sex? Yes. That's it. That's prostitution. So there wasn't much argument on those 2 counts. And I think if his attorneys appeal them, they are silly, because the facts are what the facts that were testified to. But the trafficking and the RICO charges, again, the goal really wasn't about convicting him on those. The goal was convicting this monster domestic violent man and having him go away for life. Not because he committed those crimes, but because we see him as the monster, violent person, and he doesn't deserve to be walking these streets. Now he may end up getting sentenced, and I would be surprised again if his sentence is very long, simply because the charges that he was convicted of don't, under the U.S. federal sentencing guidelines, don't carry or start with a lengthy sentence. And he's already been in, I think, 9 months. If I'm not mistaken, he's been sitting for 9 months. So he gets credit for all of that time. How would that, right, based upon the person that you see, how he's acted in court, do you think that's reasonable? Do any of you believe that if he gets probation or he gets credit time served, that would be fair? A fair sentence of what he was convicted of? Gentlemen, that's not a rhetorical question.
Listen, I think, and I said, I'll be very quick with my answer. Without a doubt, because I think they already realized, in a jury, again, if we want us to respect juries and say they're useful and set a precedence of respecting the jury for what we ask them to do and honor what they come up with, if we like it or don't like it, yes, he should have actually left out of the courtroom that day, because there are precedents of people doing the same identical thing who federally didn't even get charges for that. And it was publicly known that they did it. So you're going to now say, what, it looks biased if you're saying, well, we're going to do this because of it. Because what case would they have had without that video?
Correct.
If that video was not able to come in, what kind of case would they would have had?
And that's why even when they asked for bail after the ruling by the jury, he asked for bail pending sentencing. He said he'd be willing to put up $1 million cash if the judge let him go home. And the judge reasoning for not letting him go on the charges he was convicted of was his propensity for violence. Not that we believe he can go out there and try to have more free calls, which is what he was convicted of. Not that he gonna go out there and hire more prostitutes and have them come travel and pay them to come have sex with him and the girl. That ain't why. But because of his propensity to violence, we're not going to let him out. That's why.
As a matter of fact, right, and he wasn't convicted on none of that. No, nothing about it.
So that's what I'm saying. When you sit down and you look at how the system is chooses how, at the end of the day, each of the people that was involved in this case are individuals. They're human beings with their own thoughts, emotions, feelings. And that's why, unfortunately, when fathers go into family court, they hope that the person who's sitting up there judging them is someone who comes in truly with an open mind and not their own personal situation to then put that on you. And oftentimes that's the case, because I've literally had cases where I walk in the courtroom and you could tell the judge had a bad morning. So in that day, I'm just trying to get in and get out. I'm trying to say the least amount of things possible. I'm trying to not irritate the judge anymore because they're already irritated. And you don't want to allow them to use whatever their personal situation is against you, but it happens oftentimes in this justice system that we're in. So that's why when you go in there as a father seeking to get the right things, and when Ron mentioned about a case where the woman has done so many crazy things, and yet the court still hasn't taken the kids away, hasn't put her on supervisory visits, none of those things. Where had the father done it, he would have already done, because again, their mindset is the man is more violent, he's stronger, he's the one that can do more damage, and if he did this versus her, it would be a completely different case. So all you have to do every time you go into the courtroom is try to be as calm as you can, try to push your emotions to the side, and deal with the fact that if you have a mouthpiece, use them. But make sure they do what Lionel said, make them advocate for you, because they will try to get the easy, oftentimes when they're overloaded with work, they will try to get the easy way out. And that's a sad part of the justice system that we're involved in. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be doing a presentation on the criminal justice system and how it impacts young Black males in our community, and the process and how that all goes. And one of the things I've done while preparing for this is how in Florida, especially, young Black males are direct filed as adults more than any other place in this United States of America. AKA the same crime that they commit in a different color skin is kept in juvenile court, where a young Black male commit that same crime, they're sent to adult court and treated as adults, and then have to go through that process. So that's another thing that I'll be doing tomorrow. If guys want to join, I'll share that information with y'all. But it's one of those things that we continue to see in this country when it comes to us, both Black males or just men in general, is being a father, no matter how much you want to continue to do so, is one of the most difficult jobs, especially when you're doing it in a loving environment, and when people are fighting you to prevent you from being that, it can become even more difficult. But you got to keep pushing through and defend yourself with the truth, as Lionel so impeccably said. And that's it, man. That's all I got to share with y'all tonight.
So let me.
I love. I'm sorry, Ron.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I was just going to say the same. If we got some last words, let's get them in, because our time is. We want to respect the people's 90 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. I think we more so than being emotional, because I'm going to be honest with you. The flip side of that is you can look like you have no feelings and still look guilty.
Right.
Right.
Right. That's what I meant. You can be high or you can be low.
Yeah, hot or cold.
Hot
or cold. You can be too hot or too cold. And so you're guilty on both ends. But I think more so than being emotional, you have to be tactical, right? And being tactical is just having all your paperwork in order sometimes. Having all your receipts, having all the fact that you can prove everything you're saying, you can back it up with proof. That's being tactical. And I think most time when it comes to advocating, it's just more so about being tactical, what you can prove versus what you can't. And so the being tactical part is very important. I think most time we're not really taught or even conditioned to be tactical, because we're taught to be submissive. You understand? Like, oh, be submissive. Just going. We actually taught to go in there with a massa mentality. Just look broken. You understand? Look as pitiful as you can look, and justice will serve you. Well, we know that's not the case, because I'm like, if that's the case, we wouldn't have 400 years worth of slavery.
Absolutely.
And so I'm like, I think sometimes, and I mean, if God empower you to confront some things, and you have the facts to confront it. One thing about it is people still have consciences. And so even if you can't combat the courtroom, combat their conscience. Because guess what I'm getting ready to tell you, I'm getting ready to plant in you anyway. And that's all Martin Luther King did. He was masterful at it. You understand? You seen the tact this man, the way he spoke and how you were planting things. People just thought, oh, I'm like, if you got stuck on just what he said versus why he was saying it, then you missed the message anyway. You feel what I'm saying? So I started to realize, like, oh man, I think I have more fun being tactical, because being tactical makes me feel equal to the next man. And guess what? The truth of the matter is, being tactical makes you equal. And that's what we're not really encouraged to be. You understand? Because being tactical, no, and I'm like, no, you have to be tactical, because that's where truth lies. Only thing is, being tactical allows you to actually use the truth. You understand? To benefit the situation.
I think that's the biggest issue with many of us, though, Lionel. I agree with you 100%. But many of us, unfortunately, when we're coming into the system, don't prepare ourselves with enough of the facts, and having our paperwork prepared, and having our witnesses prepared, and having our situation in line so that we can be tactical, so that the truth can be heard. So unfortunately, if you're not someone who has that understanding, surround yourself with people that can bring that understanding, help you with the understanding, so that you can protect yourself. Because otherwise, the majority of us oftentimes, as you just said, lay down and call it a day and get quiet, because it's easier to do. It's much easier to do. So again, thank you, Dr. Ron, for this incredible topic on how fatherhood can be impacted, or what we can learn from this through the Sean Cole. I didn't even get a chance to discuss with his kids came in the courtroom and had to hear
we discussed that. That was our initial conversation about how was that as a father to have your kids have to, and what did that, one big part was what did that mean, and what did that show the jury about him as a father, because those kids had to go in there and hear some graphic things that were interrelated to stuff that you really don't want to hear about. My dad was doing this and doing that. He had the girl doing that, and he was watching in the back. The kids don't want to hear. They don't even want to think about their parents being sexual beings.
Period.
So that was a big part of that. So, but anyway, listen, folks. Tonight, as most nights, and you heard from the man himself, Jag, attorney at law. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach. If you need to get in touch with him, who he is, Johnny A. Gaspar Esquire. You can reach him at J.Gaspar at jag1law.com, or his phone number 305-827-8087. And if you just want to go and find out what kind of law he practices, how can you get in contact, what you need to get from him, you can go to his website. It's www.jag1law.com. And I'll be calling him to set up an appointment soon for myself. So I just realized that I need to start working on my own personal case. So that's the way it goes, folks. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us, the guys who was already on, Dr. Gaines, Ed Tenney, especially. It was very good to hear from and see our long-term brother, Gene Menard, Gene Robert. And then, it's always great, as we was talking about this, came right on time as we got to the legal matters, so we make sure we have the facts with the law, the person who knows the law, giving the law, because it was important when, as we talk so much about Sean Combs, how can we learn from that as fathers, and what can we learn from it? Not just talking about the gossip of this and that, because everything that happens in the society, we should be trying to learn from it. And that's what the think tank is going to do. Going to take things that's happening, how we can learn from it, how we can share it, how we can get you to like, share, and subscribe, and become a part of our conversation. With that being said, hey guys, repeat after me. I am. I am a man of honor.
I
I am a man of honor.
I am.
I
I
am.
am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of courage.
I
I
am
am a man of courage.
I am.
I
I
am.
am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
I
I
am a
am a
man
man
of
of
respect.
respect.
Brothers, I say that I am.
I
I
am.
am.
I say that you are.
You are.
I say that we are
We are
championship
championship
fathers.
fathers.
Championship fathers. Yes,
Again, we
indeed.
use that to show our kids are on our, we're holding our kids up on our arms and our families on our back, and we're doing everything in our community to try to give back. With that being said, thank you. You can join us next week. Another exciting episode of the Fatherhood Think Tank, so you can hear what fathers are thinking, how they're operating, and what they're doing in their community based on topics that affect us every day. Thank you guys again. We'll see you all here again next week at the Fatherhood Think Tank.
Good night, gentlemen.